All right, can you guys all hear me?
Yes.
Good? All right, excellent. Now let me share my screen. And let's see, this one here. And are you folks able to see that?
Visible, yeah.
All right, work after graduation, a guide to success. We good there? I assume so. Alrighty. Yep, I can see it on my screen. So, all right, folks. My name is Brian Schuster. I am a engineering manager at IBM and actually have close to 10 years of experience in development. Before that, I was basically a business analyst with no technical background, and I slowly went through the process of going from being a BA to technical all the way through. So I've gotten a chance to really see the industry from a number of different angles, and has really given me a very unique perspective on how one should operate in this industry, to do that. Along the same time, I love mentoring folks. I love seeing people and talking with them about our career and my career, how I've done, and people have gotten a lot out of that. So I've also started a company called Schusterian Careers, which is really focused on helping people get into the industry and actually become great software developers. And hopefully I can give you some insights into that today. Question: did somebody raise their hand, or did somebody have a question? I saw a hand raised. Nope. Okay. That's totally fine. If you do have a question or raise, come on mute, interrupt me. Guys, I am very, very easy as far as this. I think the most fun is actually when I start talking about somebody and somebody comes on and just has to blurt out a question. So if you have an idea, please let me know. But without further ado, let's get started. So before we talk a little bit about what work outside of your work looks like, let's talk about what work looks like to you guys. My understanding is you folks are all students. You've been going to university. You've spent years and years going through, kind of the work life there. And you don't think of this as shaping a mentality and personality, but the truth is that it really gives you a model for how you think about the world, and that model has certain rules associated to it. So as I started talking to folks before this meeting here, people who are going to attend here, I got kind of the very similar questions. Should I focus on DSA and data structures and algorithms? Should I focus on other things? What is the next technology here? And it really kind of had this idea of, like, there's a certain mentality you folks had that I thought was unique. And I realized it was very much because the work you have in college is really shaping how you think about the world. So here's some kind of common things that I've seen about college, and what that does. First off, it makes you think that there is a single unified answer to what exactly the right goal is when it comes to your answers. When you go to a classroom and you go to a university, you all have one single goal. Let's get to graduation. There could be sub goals associated to that, right? Maybe I go get an internship, or maybe I want to get really good grades, or maybe I want to do something related to a particular industry, but it kind of gives a sense of you're all heading towards the same direction. There's a unified answer to what is the right answer here. And the answer is often get to graduation and get a good job. You also have, within individual courses, you have learning that's based on a fixed binary standard, which encourages you to really have deep learning within a particular subject. When you go to a classroom, there's really only one way that you can pass the course, and that is the instructor comes up with a curriculum. If you pass that curriculum, you end up getting a good grade there. And even though there might be percentages, you might get an 80%, 90%, 100, you're going to pass only if you pass their standard. So this encourages you to listen to your instructor, have a fixed idea of what it actually means to be good in that particular course, and you end up having deep learning towards that particular subject. So that encourages a particular life philosophy. There is a clear, inflexible structure to the way life works and the way college works here. And what I mean by that is that you get up in the morning, You have courses during the regular day. You don't know when, you may choose your schedule, but the truth is you're going to go to class, you're going to come out of it. And that's what everyone in your life does. That's what everyone is actually doing there. And there's no real alternative answer to that. There's no place where somebody comes in and basically says, hey, I'm deciding that I'm going to do remote learning for the rest of the quarter, things like that. No, that's not what happens. You end up going through that. You end up going through the structure and thinking that this is the way it is. And then finally, your relationship to classmates is actually a lot different than elsewhere. Where if you are in a course, for example, there's first place, second place, third place, fourth place, and if you're graded on a curve, your classmates are your competitors. So even if you end up having a class where you have group projects, everyone you're working with is kind of your competitor. There are at best, they don't affect your grade, right? You can get an A and they get an A. So at best, they're just kind of there, not really doing anything to help you. It's really just being about yourself. But at worst, you're actually having folks who are directly your competitor. If they get a good grade, that actually harms your ability to have a bad grade to do that. So it kind of encourages this isolation, this competitiveness, where you don't have to work with other people, and you get this idea that you can just work out and do things in a particular manner. So when we have this, and you're thinking of college, you go out and you think about what does real technology work look like? What does real development work look like? And we often take out and extrapolate from our current experience. So you have had many, many years of working in school and universities and being trained for the workforce using all these principles that I just discussed. And so you start to think out and go, okay, how can I do best in the next structure? So you start thinking about, okay, what are the right data structure? Do they care about data structures? Do they care about algorithms? Do they care about competitive coding? If they don't care about those things, you're often not thinking like an employer. You're often thinking about somebody who just went through school and thinking, okay, well, what other discipline am I supposed to be learning? What other subjects am I supposed to be going to? You might be thinking about what are the best master programs I need to be going into. They're not necessarily bad questions, but what I want to have you think here is your circumstances you were under shaped your mentality of where you're going to in the future. And because of that, you think in the same way. I often see college students coming out and saying they're looking for a right answer to what's the best school, go to. Often they come out in the real world and they say, okay, well, what's the best company I should be working for? Should I be working for an IBM or Google, or is there a big consulting firm locally I should be doing there? When I go out there, how do I stand out against the crowd? How do I make sure that as I'm competing against other people who are looking for the same job, I'm doing stuff to get out there? And so we end up extrapolating this mentality to the real world, and that's kind of shapes, our strategy. But the truth is that after we get out of school, circumstances change, and they actually change quite dramatically. So there's this piece of art actually I saw years ago, and I loved it. I actually loved it so much I found the person who created this and hung this on the wall. The name of this piece is Life After Graduation. And what you see here is you kind of have this idea of all these, you have these paths and these ladders and this group and everything up there, and there's all these different ways to get up there. And then you hit a clearing and it's just flat and lawn and very little variation. And all of a sudden, it is an entirely different game. There's this truism that says, what got you here won't get you there, which is what got you to this particular point. In this case, what gets you to graduation, what gets you to, the point of, being successful in school will not get you to success in the real world. So it's very different from the real world. And because of that, some people struggle. And actually, I have experiences where people who were phenomenally useful in school, they were top A students, they were the best in class, got into the real world and never made that mindset shift to realize I need to do something entirely different. And because they had that mindset shift, because they never did that, they ended up doing quite poorly in the real world. They tried to go out to graduate school. They tried to go through an answer. They tried to look to other people to say, please tell me what the right answer is. And they couldn't do it. And they ended up not being very successful. And so so if you can think of your teens and your early 20s as getting an education, you can think about your 20s as readjusting to the real world, readjusting to this, the transition, and actually struggling with what does it mean? What is this real world that I'm a part of now? And so really what I want you to see is that you really need to be encouraging a different philosophy and mentality when you get to school, and you need to be dropping a lot of the old stuff here. So let me take you through what the difference is. What are the biggest differences between what you're learning right now in your programs, and not just the technology. The technologies, the ideas, and the things you learn within those programs are useful. They're useful. That's why you're being taught. But the philosophy you have to be successful in school is the thing that needs to change. Here are the biggest ones I've seen. One, when you get to the real world, there is no set goal. When you're in a university setting, everyone has this joint belief. Graduate from university means success. Getting internships is a good thing. Graduating and getting into a top program is an important thing. Everyone has this idea. But the truth is, you go out into the real world and all of a sudden it's up to you. Sure, within your particular company, like at IBM, hey, getting promotions is the best thing in the world. But who tells you you have to believe that's true? Well, the answer is no one. Do you want to work at IBM? Do you want to grow phenomenally successful in the organization? Maybe that's what you really want. Or maybe you just love being a developer and being an individual contributor. And so you don't want to grow in IBM at all. You want to find a great position, work there for your rest of life, and do that. And I know people who have stayed at the same band, which is the same level, for 30 years of their career because they wanted to be in the details and they love that and do that. Is that a right answer? Is that a good answer? For them, it might be. For you, it might be a bad answer. It even goes beyond that, which is to say, if you don't want to work for a big company, maybe you want to be an entrepreneur. Or maybe you want to go off and you want to do not-for-profit work. Who tells you what's that right answer? The answer is no one. You tell yourself that. But that's the biggest struggle I've seen with folks, where they realize that the locus of control is no longer these instructors in life. It's their parents, it's their university instructor, and then it just turns into their boss. If you decide to make your boss your next person you're trying to please, and this is coming from somebody who is your boss, who is the boss of at least 25 people, you're going to be miserable in your life. You're going to be absolutely miserable. You have to realize there is no set goal, and what you want has to come inside. Big change. So that's the first thing. The second thing, what you have to learn is going to be highly flexible and unknowable, which means that it encourages exploration. Before, I used this concept that says that when you go to courses, it encourages deep learning into one single subject. You go into a math course, here's a curriculum, so now I'm going to go deep into this course here, and I'm going to dive into this particular subject. That's great, but the reason you can do that is because your instructor told you you're going to be tested on this. You know exactly what you need to learn, and you know the subjects you need to learn, and the manner in which you need to learn it. They give you everything you need to learn. But the truth is, you might get into a job, and I'll give you an example. In my job right now, we were just told that a big stakeholder inside of our organization was leaving. That a bunch of developers that we were supporting are now moving to a different part of the organization. And so now I had to go to my project manager, and I basically told her, hey, everything I told you for the last year about what this project was, no longer true. No longer true. You now have to come up with a new project plan. We have to rotate them to another part of the organization. And by the way, I don't know all the details, so I can't tell you this. Now, if you're somebody who needs structure, I just broke you. I just absolutely broke you, because you had there was a structure you had in your mind and a direction you went through, and you knew what the rules were, and I just came in and the organization just wiped out under your feet. So who's the type of individual who will do well in this organization? Well, it's somebody who's flexible. It's somebody who's okay with uncertainty. It's somebody who's willing to change routes and say, okay, well, I was learning subject A before, but now I need to move to subject B or C or D. Maybe it's one of these things because I need a new tool set, or I need to work someplace else, or I don't know what I need to explore. I need to do more knowledge. I need to sit on this a little bit longer and figure out what's going on. You can't just go through. So instead of deep learning all the time, you also have exploration mode. And what I've seen people who are really successful is they flip between deep learning a particular subject that they know is useful to let's go and explore something new. Let's learn a new subject. Let's do something that actually helps teach people, let's do this thing that I don't even know if anyone finds this useful, but I find value here. Let's go and give them there. So instead, people out in the real world who do well value exploration, they value learning, and they value going out and exploring these new things. The next thing that is important, I just alluded to this before, is that the goal structures are constantly changing in the real world. Even if you decide, I want to be at IBM, even if you said, you know what, I think Arvid's inspired me, I'm going to be the CEO of IBM. Totally achievable goal to do that and do that. Guess what? There is no easy path to follow to be the CEO of IBM. There are paths to get to be your manager, for example. There are paths to get to maybe a low-level VP if you're interested in that. But the truth is, the structure is constantly changing. The world is imperfect. And sometimes there are just flat out, some of the goals you're going to be given are totally unachievable. I give goals to my people that I know are not just stretch goals, but damn near impossible, because I'm trying to go to the team and say, we need a new mentality. I'm here to break whatever old structure you have, because we need to be thinking in an entirely new manner. And so what you do is you're given a goal structure and you're given a change, which means that you're not always going to know where the end goal is. You're beyond your university professor telling you, here's the right math problem, here's the exact curriculum to test. Instead, you're talking to a boss who might be like, hey, I have no clue what the answer is, but I know what out here doesn't work. So we need to brainstorm something new. I need you to come give me a new idea or some concept, because that's what the situation calls for. Which means that you have to have as Andy Grove, who's the former CEO of Intel and like one of the luminaries of the modern technology world. He came up, all of the companies you look at in San Francisco or Silicon Valley today, Google, Intel, Facebook, all use Andy Grove's philosophies to run these things. And he says for managers, you need to have a high tolerance for disorder to basically be able to handle that, but you're constantly putting the pieces together. I throw a curveball at you, you need to collect them together. And so that's something that you need to get used to. And then finally, and this is probably the most critical thing, your peers are not your competitors. Your peers are absolutely 100% necessary for your success. There may be stuff that you get in the corporate world that might look like friendly competition, right? Where you're trying to say, where you're egging each other on to say, I'm going to get more support tickets to do that. And that's great. But at the end of the day, we're on the same team. We are one group. If you fail, I fail. So I can't let you fail. There are people in the organization that they do that, where if there's people who fail too much and they hurt the team, they'll be expelled from the organization. Why? Because the team needs to succeed. So at the end of the day, if you're competing with people or you're fighting with people, you're not going to be very successful. Because the truth is, because of this flexibility, because of this, the goal is constantly changing, because you can decide what you want there, you need as much help as you can get. So when you go in there and you go to teams, you need to go, hey, I need help with this. What have you done to solve this problem? Neither of us know what's going on here, so I need your help. Or you say, hey, I'm at the final mile here and I am stuck. You want somebody to basically go in, grab you and say, here, I'm going to save you now, and pull you out there and be able to do that. And then when they're in trouble, you can do the same thing. Or somebody else is in trouble, you can help there. So this mentality that school cultivates with this almost at best indifference as worse competitiveness is almost poison for the real world. There's brief periods between jobs where you are in theory competing with other people. But the truth is, you don't even have to see it that way, because the truth is you don't even know who those competitors are. You can just treat it as if I'm trying to do the best job I can, and I want this employer to realize why I am a great fit for the organization, and not even think about anyone else. You're looking for the win-win-win between you, the people you're working with, and the organization you're trying to support there. And so you have to figure out how to make this work. So because those organizations are, changed, and because of those things are different, you need a new mentality. And by the way, this is not something where today you're going to figure this out. This took me reasonably until I was 30 to really get this ingrained, and only until the last couple of years to really put all the pieces together to do this. This is the journey. Learning things like data structures, machine learning, AI, blockchain, whatever you're interested in, that is worthy and good stuff to learn here. But that's stuff that I can sit down and train you on how to do that, and you'll be successful. But this mentality here, it's deep. You have to retrain your brain to go and do this. So this will take time. But if you were to retrain it and you had to sit down, what are the principles you need to be considering? And these are the ones I have. 1, you need to sit down and put real thought into what is true success and failure for myself. What does that really look like to me? Because at this point, it's been decided for you. You need to graduate school, you need to do this, or your parents or some peer or your community or whatever. But at the end of the day, you're going to be turned on the real world and you need to decide what success is. Being the founder of a company the thing that's most important to you? Is being able to optimize for your time so that you can work as few hours per week so you can focus on creative hobbies important to you? Do you not care about work and your real passion is you want to start a family and that's all you care about in this world? Or maybe you want to be a family, but you want to work a career at the same time, or whatever job it is. You need to decide for yourself what success and failure is, because no one else can do it. And I promise you, if you don't do this, you will use your old pattern. You will adopt the success and failure of someone else in your world. Could be your parents, could be your boss, could be an organization that doesn't give two damns about you, and adopt that as your own. And you're going to be in a world of hurt. You're going to regret it. You have to decide for yourself, because once you decide for yourself, you can then align yourselves with organization and people who are going after the same goal, who believe the same thing, and you can be fully aligned. And that's when the true magic happens. That's when success is there. You have to be able, though, to decide for yourself, what does that mean? Number 2, you need to figure out how you are truly providing value to an organization, not just merely filling out the tasks. So if you go into a role and you decide to do the work for that organization, what you end up getting is that you can look at the task in front of you and say, okay, if I do step A, B, C, D, I'm going to be successful in this particular role. But because of that nature of inflexible goals, where I can come in and just knock over your Legos and say, we need you to move on to this new project. You're going to be moving to this new organization. Instead, the tasks no longer matter. But your ability to provide value, to look beyond the task and figure out the reason this is important is because it is making my clients' lives easier. We are building a faster release engineering pipeline. I'm building a web app that is 10 times faster than what's out there, or highly scalable or highly reliable. If you can tie your work to value, when somebody knocks around your tasks, you can know, well, okay, I still need to provide value here, but I now have a new constraint to be able to do so. So what is this new constraint I'm going to go after? What are the new tools I need to use? What are the new philosophies I need to be incorporated? What's the new team I need to be able to work for? If you're constantly pointed at adding value and you only use the task as a means to the end, life will become a lot easier to deal with because you'll be a lot more flexible. That's the second thing. Focus on value, not the task. Third thing, see your peers as people who can provide value to you and you can provide value to them. That's really the big thing. Start cultivating these relationships now. When you go out into the world and you network, even with people you think... All right, great question, Nikhil. I'll answer that in a sec. When you go out into the real world and you go out to do that, you should try to provide value wherever you do. Even if you're talking to someone who you think is going to provide you a job or an informational interview or something like that, you need to be able to say, you need to be in this mentality where you're providing value. You're providing this idea. Here, you're talking to me. How can I help you? What can I do for you? What can I provide to you? Here's a book I've learned. Here's a connection I can make. Let me do some project work for you so I can help you there. Always being providing value to them and see them as somebody that you can potentially work with to go and do this. If you start cultivating these relationships that are win-wins, that's Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you're constantly looking for the win-win, we can work together and build this and we're both better off. You're starting to cultivate that communication mentality. That's really important. So start seeing peers as valuable, as people you need to work with, and that if we don't all win, we all lose. That's a really good philosophy to have. And then the last thing I have here is that accept that sometimes no one has the answer to what you're actually doing. And this is really hard for people to get over at sometimes here. I'm literally going through this right now where a big organization happened. And the truth is that up at the highest level in the organization, literally my VP, doesn't have an answer to this question. And so there is uncertainty. So what can you do? All you can do is to try to provide value, be flexible, be ready on your feet, look for opportunities and provide it. Because the truth is sometimes when no one has an answer, but you have an idea, you might escalate yourself right to the front row because you're the person who has an idea when no one else does. You think of your boss as having all the answers, but the truth is he doesn't. I don't, certainly. I know my manager doesn't, and I know the people I've dealt with, they're all human at the end of the day. So the truth is, if you can live in that uncertainty and don't blame the world or the company or anything else, shit happens sometimes and we're just trying to deal with the best we can. If you can live with that, it means that as opportunities start to form, you can have a clear head, you can see an answer and go and say, I can do that. I can make this work. So let's go on that side here. So to finish this up, let's get real practical with this. I gave you a bunch of philosophies. What can you start doing today? First thing, make communication a top-level activity in the way you do. The way you figure out how to work with other people is by being clear with your communication. Be somebody who writes well, be somebody who speaks well, be somebody who's comfortable talking with people. Because as you get good technical skills, and I have no doubt you'll find those technical skills, I have no doubt you'll be able to go and do that. But if you don't know how to communicate your value and you don't know how to help people, you're going to be locked in a box. At the end of the day, you're not joining a company to be an individual contributor. You are joining as part of a team. And your ability to be valuable to that team is to get ideas out of your head and into a common forum. So make communication one of the core things you work on. Write, speak, give talks, figure out how to communicate with people in a natural way, and that will start to naturally come out. That should be the lifelong thing that you work on. 2, learn how to be curious about the world, about subjects that you have nothing going on. If you're in school and you're anything like me, you see the subjects in front of you and say, this is all that matters. But the truth is that's a very limiting way to think of the world. Your mind should be open to occasionally go and study something else, even something you're not 100% certain about. If you don't, for example, NFTs are, for blockchain are a very divisive issue for people and whatever. People want to put it into say it's the greatest thing that's going to transform the world. Not true. Or it's going to be something that, or it's a complete scam. Also not true to what they do here. They lock it out in one way. You can be skeptical, but be curious. Never fully lock out an idea that you go through and do that. So go study a course, be willing to be risky with your time, and give 10 hours deeply to learn about a new subject, and find a way to basically integrate that into your work. Be curious, explore as many subjects as you can. Accept that sometimes the best technical answer sometimes that the best technical answer for what you're doing may not always be the best answer in totality. That's something that is really important for folks, because you're going to be technical, you're going to be engineering, but the truth is that if you can accept that sometimes technically you have the right solution, but you may not go with it because the business need dictates that you go in a different direction, and if you can find a way to gracefully handle that and gracefully communicate your problems there, that'll go a long way in helping you figure out how to communicate in the workplace. Because again, as developers, you're going to see solutions being made that's like, hey, I don't know why we went with solution A versus B. And sometimes it's because of a business reason or some stakeholder or something else. But when that happens, you want to make sure that you go, okay, we didn't win this time, or I don't understand entirely, but I accept that that's best for the business, and you move on. So accept that sometimes the best technical answer is not the best answer for the problem. Number 4, getting into a routine to be able to continually learn. If there's something you can do with your time here to do this, don't take college and let it be the last thing that you do. Find time your nights and weekends. Be a reader, study books, go to courses, do Udemy and things like that, and never think that learning process ends. I'm 34 years old right now, and I'm still studying stuff from the ground up. I'm going to be spending this weekend learning how to build a DAO for a web school that I'm interested in starting. Guess what? I'm starting from the beginning. There's no advanced course. Just because I did this for 10 years doesn't mean I get to not be a dumbass when it comes to, learning the first set of things. So find a routine to learn, make it easy, and do that. And of course, reading, read for the rest of your life. It's going to be one of the best things you can do. Understand that there are many ways to be successful and there are many paths. Just accept that maybe you want to be the best person. Maybe you want to be the CEO of IBM. Fantastic. Also accept that you may be working with a peer who may decide family is the most important thing to me. I only work as many hours need to do that, and make that. If you can find a way to accept that, in yourself and in others, you'll find a way to communicate and use people to the best advantage. That's a really good thing to be able to do. And then finally, put your primary focus on serving others. That's what I talked about before with value creation, on service to others. If your goal is focused on the tasks and just being focused on the technology, you may have a very hard path to be able to, actually provide value, because somebody will come through and knock over your Legos, the project might change, and the world is very chaotic. But if you focus on service, if you focus on here's my client and here's what they need, and there are many ways to provide value, when tasks change, you can be flexible to say, okay, we still need to provide value, but now I need to do it in a slightly different manner. If you put a focus on this and basically keep your focus on value, life will get a lot easier. And so those are my tips on how to basically get through. I hope that was very helpful. Again, I have Schusterian Careers. I got a bunch of links here to kind of share with you with the different areas that I've gone into, but I'd be very happy to take some questions now if you have them.
Amazing, Brian. That was really a deep insight on how, professional life is going, and that was amazing. So we can go with the questions. Nikhil has this question that what encourages you to go to the office with the same enthusiasm every day?
The idea that I can quit at any moment and find another job. 100%. That's a weird answer, but the truth is that I have been most miserable when I felt I couldn't leave a job, that I didn't have any opportunities. But the truth is, I know that if tomorrow I needed to put in my slip and say, hey, can't do this anymore, I need to leave, and I have full freedom to do that, it makes me love the job. It makes me go here because I know the reason I'm in this role is not because I'm forced to be here. The reason I'm here is because I have a contribution. This is the best place for me. There is no better place. The people who are miserable tend to be the folks that say, I'm in this damn job because, I'd rather be building keyboards in my free time, or I'd rather be a Linux, I'd rather be working for a cool company, or I'd rather, oh my God, I need to be starting my own company. And I've been that person. I've been that miserable, asshole, for lack of better of a term, who's tried to provide that. But the truth is that having that freedom to know I don't need this, I can do this, and I want to be here and do this makes it really easy to come into the office every day and do this. So that's the first thing. And the second thing too is just finding a good match between my personal skills and what needs to happen. And again, took a long time there. I tried to force myself to be a pure developer for a long time, and the truth is that wasn't in the cards. I am about as tech savvy as you'll possibly find, and a good developer within certain verticals. But the truth is, I've always been way more business oriented at the end of the day. And finding this particular job allowed me to basically merge those two things, the tech side and the business side, to do something quite great. And now as an engineering manager, I love mentoring people, I love helping people, I love dealing with strategy, and I love giving my people, energy to go after these big problems. So for me, it's actually quite cool. So those have been the two big things: finding a match, and then the big one being, excuse me here, finding the role, finding a role that actually worked for, really worked for me. Or I'm sorry, sorry about that. Finding, being able to leave the job at any point. That's what I meant to say.
Yes.
May I?
We've yes, go ahead, please.
Please.
How long did you take to build this attitude that you have to work for service and not for a cool company or something like that?
It took a while. I am not a saint by any means. This was not. I didn't come up with this idea because of any religious reasons or any idea that I did this. For the longest time, I did it mostly for me. And I mean very selfishly. I thought for myself. I thought for myself that I was going to be a founder, that I was going to start this big company and do this here, but it was very selfish reasons. I came to the answer that service was the best answer because it made life easier. It made life easier. It made life simpler. And
Yeah.
it took many, many books and many things like that. Because here's a belief I have about myself, or I believe about people. If you have this thing in your mind that like I need to do X thing and you feel like it's locked behind a wall, it builds a victim mentality. And I had that for a lot of years where I thought, oh, if I could just stop working my job and I could start my own company, if I could just do this, it put me into this really negative attitude. And the truth is that like I actually took off time and started a company for a period of my life and did that. And again, that's that mentality that I figured out. And I had to build finances. I had to build a career. Like I needed to earn this, for lack of a better term, to get out to this point. But only by going out, owning my time, and realizing how weak I really was, or how unprepared I really was, that I finally accept, whoa, I don't understand something about this. And so now I really am in a position where I could leave my job if I wanted to today. I could be financially stable. I could do it. And I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because I know I want to be of service of others. I'm only going to leave if I can be more service elsewhere, and I want to have that built out. So the truth is, it took a lot of meditation, it took a lot of reading, it took a lot of time, and a lot of risk too, to kind of go off and do these things. So that's the thing. I don't expect anyone here to have this mentality easily. It takes time and introspection.
Yes, it took me
Uh,
to.
Hi Brian,
Oh,
can you give a view on that feeling that a person who is doing open source and doing real time projects is far better than a person who is going to university for a degree, for getting a job or anything he wanted to do in life?
all right. Aman, I will get to your question in a quick second. Prachi, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Did you have
Yeah,
anything less
yeah.
you want to say? Yeah.
No, I was just saying that, and I just want to appreciate that you are out of it.
Yeah. No,
That attitude.
yeah, I mean, that's it. It's a good attitude, but let me tell you, it's hard to build. It's hard to build. So anyway, so thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah.
So Aman, honestly, I would say like, look, real open source contributions are going to kick the crap out of a university degree 9 times out of 10. There are some places that still say they still value a university education quite highly. And again, I have to think this is largely U.S. culture or U.S. companies working in the U.S. culture. Like I said, I've worked for multiple firms in India that were started and moved there, but they're Americanizing because they're in here. So I can't tell you what the exact culture is here. But I will tell you as an engineering manager, if I see real open source contributions sitting on your resume, I'm not even going to notice your university education. I'm going to zero in on that and say, tell me about how you did that, because that is impressive. Does that answer your question, Aman?
Yes, thank you.
No problem. No problem. Okay. Let's see. There's a
Hello, sir.
Yes. Manish?
Sir, I want to know that as you told us many things about to do in college life, just contribute in open source or find any skill which you are interested in. But in our college life, we don't get that much of time to do this type of work. Can you tell us some tips and tricks to manage how to manage time or time management skills?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I really recommend you do is really learn habit creation. Learn the science of habits. There's a phenomenal book. Let's see, is it on my wall still? Yeah. American author named James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits. First off, understand what it means to be a habit. You are really a very dumb animal at the end of the day, and you need to understand that mechanism of how you build habits, how you grow that. So first and foremost, learn that science. That's going to be really important. Second is that you need to learn how to build routines. I'm doing that here. Here's the thing. Long-term consistency is going to beat short-term intensity 999 times out of 1,000. Really what worked for me is, I understand my body. So getting up in the morning, working out, and then being ready means that from 6 a.m. to 8:30, I'm basically ready to work. That's a routine. But you can do the evenings. You can do the middle of the day. And what I do there is say, okay, build time in some part of my day to do some task. It could be learning an additional subject. It could be networking. Could be building your LinkedIn profile. But what you want to do is you want to effectively build in the habits and then space in your calendar to say this 30 minutes every weekday or every week or every Saturday or whatever works for you is for the purpose of basically building in this new school. Once you learn how to build routines and you have confidence in yourself to build in routines, you don't have to worry then about, figuring out if you have enough, you don't then have to worry about figuring out if, what's the right thing to do? What's this or whatever? You can use that time for exploration. You can build it and mold it there. So that's really the core of, really task management. Find a routine that you like, that you can keep up with, keep it up for a period of time, and then adapt it to the situation over time. Does that help you answer your question, Manish?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Hi,
Thank you.
Brian.
Deepak?
Sir, if you don't have any problem, then can you share your daily routine?
Manish, can we go ahead with the remaining questions first and then get back to you? We
Okay.
have Deepak,
Uh,
No problem.
then Aditya, and then
Yeah,
Diksha, and
Deepak.
then we have the questions.
Hi, Brian. So, as you talked about the dynamic nature of the work, and that it would take no time for a job to assign us some new role all of a sudden. So, basically, amidst all this, how are you able to control yourself emotionally? Like, how does it not deter your spirits and make you feel not grumpy?
First off, like, here's the thing, guys. I was just thinking about this morning. I'm like, why have I become less hot-blooded over time? And the truth is, as you get older, your energy naturally decreases in the way that you do that. That's just biology. And the reason for that, your brain gets more mature as you do. Your brain is maturing until you're 25 years old. And then even then over time, you start to get less energy. You just have less excess energy to go off and do stuff. The reason why young kids do stupid shit is because They have a ton of energy, they don't know where to do it, and they're looking for something fun to do. So life over time basically will help solve that problem if you feel like you're hot-headed. But the best way that I found to do that is, one, learn meditation and just recognizing when emotions are coming up, and do that. Just recognizing I'm angry, I'm pissed off. That's kind of the first thing. Second, having people you can talk about it with is really, really helpful. You shouldn't keep it bottled up. I mean, I told my mentee yesterday about this big project change that she had, and she said, "Brian, I am super pissed off." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Get it out. You are welcome to be angry. You're welcome to be there." Having people you trust that you can vent to is such a big deal to be able to make that happen. It could be somebody at work, it can be a spouse, it could be a friend, somebody to just say, "I'm fed up with this. I don't know what to do with it." And just getting it out there is fine. But finally, and this is once you can recognize an emotion and then have somebody you can talk about it with and feed it out there, the next thing is really getting back to the core base, which is, it kind of the Stockdale Paradox. It was written by Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great, which is a philosophy that all great companies have, which is recognize the reality of the current situation, but believe in the good end. Believe in the end that's going to come out and that you're going to win. That the good thing there. So when you get your Legos knocked over, for lack of a better term, recognize the reality of the current situation, but then say, you know what? We're still going to win. We're still going to find a way. We're still going to make this work. Or we're going to find a job. We're going to find the career. We're going to do the thing that ends up working. And so if you have that mentality and you keep that to your heart and you're always getting back to, you remove yourself from the ability to get into the victim mentality. And that's really what you're trying to avoid. You don't want to see yourself as a victim, even if it's worthwhile, even if it's right, even if you have been wronged. The victim mentality puts you in such a deep path, such a negative pathway. You stop learning, you stop contributing, and it puts you in a place where you stop building value for yourself. And so that would be my recommendation on how you do that. And again, just this practice with it, man. That's the other thing. Does that help answer your question, Deepak?
Yeah, Brian, got my answer. Thank you.
No problem here.
Aditya, you can go next.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Brian.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My question is, there are times when you try to do something and things don't go your way. So how to handle the disappointment and how to keep that self-belief when you are facing failures?
Basically, I mean, that's the thing. Like having a very diverse life with many, many different areas of focus. Like for me personally, I have my IBM work, I have Shoestering Careers, I have this Web3 school that I'm doing, I have my family, I have 3 kids with a 4th on the way, my extended family, I have my hobbies that I do, working out and things like that. And that means that by virtue of having a very full life, nothing is ever going to be totally up and nothing is ever going to be totally down. Often when you are super upset about a thing and you can't get it off your head is because you're overinvested in that one part of your life. Stephen Covey talks about this in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he says, if you have a life that's based on work, it means that if work is good, it's really, really, really good and life is great. But when it's bad, it's going to crash you, right? And do that. So if you're overinvested in that, it means that if you have a bad day at work, it means that your family's going to be impacted, your personal health's impacted, your finances or whatever is going to be there. And it means that you can't really roll with the punches, Now, there are some things that you are super, super fragile to, right? Like financial pain is going to be one that kills you regardless. I don't care how well you're doing. If your bank account is 0, life's going to suck overall. You need to protect that. Your health, you need to protect. If you have, you could be doing as best you can, but if you can't walk because of some pain in your leg or your stomach, life's going to be bad. So you need to protect that. Relationship, same thing. You can have an amazing life, but if you marry the wrong person or, don't invest in those relationships or you have a bad relationship with your kids, life sucks. Doesn't matter. But outside of those areas that are like core things you're fragile to, all the other areas, my advice is figure out where you're overinvested and then divest out of that. Divest out of that ability, Start to build out life where work doesn't mean as much. If you don't do as well in university, it may suck. You may want to make a change, but it doesn't stop you from being able to go out and enjoy a meal with your spouse or being able to go hang out with your kids or go out with some friends and go, have fun with them or to read a book or something like that. So again, it's practice. It takes time. You're okay to be upset about something. That is 100% fine. But you need to make sure that it doesn't infuse in everything else. And divesting your attention is one way to do that. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, yes. I'll try to do that.
All right, no worries.
Aditya?
Hi, Brian.
Hey, Ditya.
Actually, I wanted to ask you that what would you suggest to an 18-year-old who wants to be a businessman, like want to be an entrepreneur or open his own business in the next 4 years of college life? What should I
Oh,
do for myself?
actually, I have some really good advice there for that. There's a lot of mentalities and philosophies around entrepreneurship. The advice from friend of mine, Ilya Rector, he started Double Map in Indianapolis. He sold the company a few years ago. Now he's off starting another company. I mean, his number one piece of advice is basically just start. That's really his advice. There are all these philosophies, and there's really good ones out there. Like MIT has a philosophy. Excuse me a sec. MIT has a whole, their Sloan School has a whole program, how they do these things. IBM has its own incubator on how they build it. The one I really like right now is the Sahil. He's the founder at Gumroad. He came out with a book called The Minimalist Entrepreneur. I really like that program. But the truth is at the end of the day, you just need practice starting. That's really it. You don't have to start a big business. You just have to help one person. You just have to help one thing. I mean, the book that I recommend here, again, is Sahil. So let me get a link to that and just drop it in the search here real quick. Here we go. Let me exit out. Let me do that. Oh, chat's not available at this time. Can you open up the chat for a sec? Just so I can drop this link.
Is it accessible now?
It's accessible now. There's the book basically that I recommend. I love his philosophy in particular because he starts off, you can start now. It's really easy. The start of being an entrepreneur is just get involved with the community and start figuring out how to provide value. And he slowly builds up. It's like the ground up. So for somebody who only has like 30 minutes a day, it's a very, very approachable method for being able to start a company. Very approachable. But really the biggest thing is just start. Just start to basically go in and start, and start adding value, helping people and move in that direction. Because if you do that, you can then build up from there. Because once you figure out how to add value, you can processize it to basically make processes around it. Once you make processes around it and you get really good at that, you can build a business model around it. When you learn how to build business models, then you can figure out then how to scale it. And his whole book talks through that. Sahil's book is fantastic. Read that and do that. But really, just start. It's the best advice I have. Does that answer your question, Aditya?
So, can I extend a bit?
Sure. Quickly.
Yeah, so there are two methods. Like what people usually do is they go for either startups in college life or something, or they rather prefer to get a job and get 5 or 10 years of experience and make that network and stuff, and then start a business of their own with their network. So what would be the better method?
Neither. They're different things.
Neither.
They mean different things. Oh, no. Well, you're asking me to make a value judgment between two separate things. Here's the thing. If your goal was to start a unicorn billion-dollar company, that's one entire method that you want to do. If you wanted to start a solo venture that you just basically made a few bucks on the side and it was more side hustle, that's a completely different methodology. If you wanted to build like a niche company because you have a passion for making cookies, for example, and you want to build a cookie empire, that's a completely different method. For somebody like yourself who's exploring, again, the raw materials is what you need. In raw materials. So basically, that's what I would say. You don't need a life path right now. You just need to get involved in the game. Start talking with entrepreneurs, find the people you connect with, go into Discord groups and Slack channels and Facebook groups and things like that, and start networking and just explore. Over time, you'll start to have an affinity towards group A versus group B, Like maybe the unicorns really do affect you and it's like, hey, I want to move to Silicon Valley and start a company. It's a reasonable, that's something you could do. Or maybe there's something locally that you could do that has a similar thing. Or you can decide, actually, I want to work for a big company and figure that out. Again, working for big companies has its benefits there. I will say, though, it doesn't teach you entrepreneurship. It teaches you the skills that could be useful as an entrepreneur. So that's the thing. Like it's a hard transition from working life to elsewhere, which is why I say, even if you decide to work for a big company but still want to be an entrepreneur, use your free time and your nights and weekends to work on those skills and building those communities. That's what I would say. Now,
Thank you,
Aditya, I
sir.
do want to move someone else, but thank you very much for the question. Connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find my profile, all my profile stuff here. And actually, here, let me drop that real quick here before I go. Would you mind opening up the chatting one more time?
Thank you so much, Brian. That was amazing listening to you.
Yep. Would you mind opening
Like
up the
most
chat real?
questions.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, just a second, just a second.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Yeah, is it accessible now?
There you go. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to answer more questions there. And we got a couple more minutes.
All right, guys, most of the questions in the chat are already answered. There's this one question that there are so many things to try out there. How do you find out your best interest? Like, is it a good idea to explore things in the early stages of your work, or is it a good idea to master in one and then explore?
Um, I like the methodology. It depends on the personality. Some people are really designed to be SMEs, where they are subject matter experts in one area. That is the minority of people I have found. Most people benefit from lots of exploration. I'm reading a book called Range by a guy named David Epstein, where he looks at world class like athletes and entrepreneurs, and he finds that the majority of people are what he calls late bloomers. They started early off in their career actually exploring many different areas. Even athletes that you think of studying there, actually they did multiple different sports before eventually niching down to one that ended up becoming the thing that they did, and they made up most of the experience on the back end, basically, where as they got older they invested more time. So for if I don't know anything about you and I had to say what would be the best thing for you to invest time into, it would really be exploring multiple different areas, having fun, going through and exploring with people and doing that, and not saying no to anything until you're being pulled in one direction. It's going to be obvious because you'll have great opportunities that just like yank you forward and you're like, okay, this is what we're doing. You'll do that. That's my recommendation.
Yes, definitely. That was pretty much good. So there's so many more questions in the chat, and most of them are answered. I guess we can sum up with this last question from Yashraj. What did the days at MIT had given to you?
Honestly, like I said, I was a part of the executive education program. I found that basically, like, if I had to take one thing away from my MIT stuff, it was a fun course. The quality of the people was quite high because, again, MIT attracts really high talent. So the networking was quite good. The education was it was okay. It wasn't terrible, but I wouldn't say it was so different that, like, you're not really paying for the MIT education. Because here's the thing. You can learn everything MIT has to teach you online. Yale, Harvard, MIT, UCal, all of them are online. You can see courses from the best teachers in the world. And even for like specific subjects, I wouldn't even go to like a university. I would go to Udemy, find educators there. I mean, honestly, I'm looking to figure out who are the best Web3 developers in the world. Guess what? They ain't working for Harvard. They ain't working for Yale. There's some guy on YouTube right now. The greatest professor that exists for blockchain is probably some kid making YouTube videos today, right now. And I intend to find him and have him make videos for me. And what I do there. So I guess that's the thing. It was great for networking. And I got to say, just for vanity purposes, like going to MIT is just such an awesome thing to have on your resume. But honestly, I wouldn't say it's not worth going into massive debt to have that on your degree. To say there, you can learn it pretty much anywhere, and you can network with those folks other places there. So that's what I would say. It's awesome, but like you can get it elsewhere.
Definitely.
Oh, Prachi, I'm so
I have
glad this was
another
a good
question.
session.
I have another question. You said earlier in the session that we should read a lot. So, as someone who has never been a big reader, could you please suggest some good books to read?
Oh man, that is so good. So okay, so the biggest one the first, I have a whole wall that's up there. Undo this here. Hold on. Let me grab them. Give me a sec. Real quick, let me see if I can give you a quick tour of the books I would recommend here. So, probably my favorite one on wealth creation is this one here. It's $3 on the Kindle. It's how do I shut off this magic? Whiteboard, apply visual effect, and none. Here we go. Okay. First one here, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. This guy is something of a luminary in Silicon Valley, and has a really, really awesome philosophy on what it means to build wealth in today's era. With what does the internet mean? What is blockchain there? So if you had to start with any book at all, start with this one. It's it's $3 on Kindle, and probably one of the best books I've read on a philosophy. That's a really good one. Next one here, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. He wrote this like 30 years ago, and it's still one of the best philosophies on how to build an effective methodology for working in the world without sacrificing your humanity, right? It's just really great book on how to be effective, how to think of your philosophy, how to put all these things together. That's an amazing book for technology, and I really recommend this. You hear this. Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. This book is just like, we have this idea of disruptive innovation and what it means. He actually breaks down why is it that big companies fail and are constantly being torn up by startups? What is that actual mechanism? And really goes into the details of that. There are no other people, and the reason I recommend people read this is that people misunderstand what a disruptive technology is. Really simply, AI is not a disruptive technology, but blockchain is. Why? He explains it in this book. Super interesting book, super fascinating. I highly recommend this. And then finally, Atomic Habits by James Clear is really one of the best books I've read about the philosophy of habit creation. Because as you talk about routines and things like that, there are many, many, many different philosophies on how you can build a good personal routine. But all of them have this underlying idea of basically what is all of them use habits. All of them are trying to take your lizard brain and trying to get you to do things. If you understand how your habits work and understand why you make the decisions you do and understand the really, really small things, like why moving a jar of cookies from the second shelf to the fifth to a cabinet might actually help you lose weight, and understand why that's an effective strategy, is really an atomic habit. So I would highly recommend that. I have about 1 million more books to give, but those are the ones I would just tell you guys to start with. But yeah, no, that's what I would say. That's what I would say that I would recommend starting with here.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. And folks, I am so happy I got a chance to chat with you folks. I have another meeting I got to get to, as I said, with the engineering manager thing. So anywho, if you want, I am more than happy to get on for another time, basically to chat or do a live stream or something, because you guys seem super engaged and super excited. I live for this or whatever. As I said before, please take a look at the events I did. I'd love to share them out. One thing I'm doing is I am hosting an event to help folks fast track into the cloud computing space. This is an event that's built from the ground up for students, for boot campers, for career changers to figure out, what do I need to learn about in cloud computing? Who do I want to network with? And what does a hiring manager look for if they want to add cloud skills? It's 100% free. I'm going to be hosting it sometime in late Q1 or early Q2. If you go to my link at Schusterian Careers, I think I dropped it in the chat there, and sign up, you'll be the first to know when it actually comes out. And I think you guys would totally love that. Besides that, thank you so much for giving me some time to chat with you folks today.